All right, you're live.
Good morning, everyone. I am Chair Sage Turner, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 27th Housing and Community Development Committee meeting. All of our council members and staff are participating virtually today. For those of you out there with us, welcome and hello. To help our audience follow along, I'm going to be stating each section of the agenda aloud so you can keep track of where we are. We're going to be live streaming on our virtual engagement hub, and that's accessible through the hub link on the front page of the city's website. You can also call in and listen, and that number is 855-925-2801. You'll be prompted for a code, and that code is 9791. You'll also have the option to call in and comment live during the meeting. And so it's the same number, 855-925-2801, and the code 9791. Your phone will be immediately muted and you'll hear the meeting live. At this point, the caller will hear for more options, please press star. And pressing *3 will allow callers to continue to listen live, but put you in the speaker queue. So that's *3 to get in the speaker queue. And each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. As a general reminder, if you are not currently engaged in the meeting, just stay in mute and you can raise your hand or do your virtual hand. I'll cue you up. If you are in a later agenda item, I see folks for a later agenda item. If you just want to turn your cameras off and sit back, you can, or you're welcome to sit here on camera, but I believe Mr. Moritz's item is up first. So we're going to do a roll call, and I'm going to introduce committee members and staff. Council members, as I say your name, can you please unmute and say a quick hello? Vice Mayor Shanika Smith.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Antoinette Mosley.
Good morning.
City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
That's great. Community and Economic Development Director Nikki Reed. I think she might be a couple. Oh, no, she's here.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Great. You made it. Thank you. Urban Planner 2, Sasha Bertinsky.
Good morning.
I believe that's all staff, right? And then we do have a couple AHAC members. Maybe we can go ahead and say hello to y'all. We have the chair of AHAC, Barry Bialik. Saw him somewhere.
Good morning.
And I believe we have the vice chair, Margie Bukowski.
Good morning.
I see Joe Ickelheim. Are you still with AHAC or are you here with something else, Joe?
I'm still with AHAC.
Okay, great.
Sage, nice to see you. Good morning, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone. We're going to get started on our agenda. First up, we have item number 1, approval of the minutes. Did anyone have a chance to look at the action minutes and any issues, changes, updates? And if not, can I get a motion?
No changes. So moved.
Second.
Great. We'll do a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Smith.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Myself, Sage Turner. Aye. So the minutes are approved. Moving right on to item number 2, we have a land use incentive grant, LUIG application for 217 Hilliard Avenue. This is for 16 affordable housing units at that location for Hilliard Flats LLC. And we have Sasha Bertinsky with planning staff to walk us through this. Go ahead, Sasha.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So this is a land use incentive grant application for 217 Hilliard. Next, and the main takeaways here are that, this project has 80 micro housing units and they are committing 16 units to be affordable for 20 years at 80% or below, and that's 20% of the units. Because it's so centrally located and they're willing to do a few other things, it actually qualifies for 21 years of taxes paid, and that is actually our maximum amount that you can get. This project has already been approved by planning and zoning. And it's my understanding that, in the policy, it says that LUIG application should be approved before final zoning approval. And I think they applied for this back in October. And I think the staff changes that were happening have kind of delayed this coming forward to you all. They still have not got their zoning permit. They have not gone through final TRC, but I did talk with legal last week, and basically council would need to just waive that requirement to approve this LUIG. I think there's one other time there's a project that requested that, but they were already under construction and they had not even gotten, this project doesn't have construction permits yet either. So next. I'm not going to read through all of these, but basically this project is 100% housing. There is community space. And it's a very small parcel, and the developer is estimating the development cost of $7.2 million. We don't have an estimated tax value. What will happen is that after the project is built, it will be appraised by the Buncombe County Tax Office, and we will have a value that we will base our final agreement on. Generally speaking, the development costs are always higher than the taxable value. So the numbers we're talking about here in terms of the grant are probably the highest, they would be. I can't obviously predict tax values in the future. So next. So this is just a few things about I probably should have done this opposite, but this is kind of the points they're amassing by their location and energy efficiency, universal design. Next. So currently, they've estimated, this is being built on a vacant piece of land behind a office building and a house that serves as offices. So the estimate is the value of that parcel is $195,000 currently, and they're paying about close to $800 in taxes on that land right now a year. So under that post-completion estimate of $7.2 million, the taxes would be $29,000. So we subtract the difference. So we would always still get that $787 a year. So we end up with about $28,000 a year that we would be paying in the grant. And so that equals about $37,000 per unit over the 20 years. So it's under our target of $80,000 is the highest we want to go. So it's substantially within kind of our limits of where we want to be on subsidies. And I also just calculated that's about $2,300 a year per unit. So if you think of it that way as a subsidy. Next. And then just to orient you a little bit, here's the parcel behind the house. So it's next to the hotspot, which is now closed. Next. So you can see this is one of the floor plans. Next. And then we have some elevations for you. Next. And this project was reviewed by the Design Review Committee, and the Downtown Commission looked at it, and Planning and Zoning. Next. And just, it's very walkable, obviously right in the center of our downtown, very close to our transit center. Next. And so we are recommending approval. This application with your approval would move on to the Finance Committee. And then I believe it probably will be at council on June 14th, just because of your agendas are so just packed with items. And it's difficult for something to go to Finance Committee and then right to City Council all on the same day. So that completes my review. I'm happy to take questions, and the developer David Moritz and Scott Shapiro are here also with any questions you might have.
Thank you, Sasha. Councilwoman, any questions for staff or developer? Well, that's great. I remember reviewing this project with the Downtown Commission and Design Review, and it's a newer model, smaller units. And interesting that this will be our kind of highest scoring LUIG ask, or however you phrase that, getting the largest amount available. So I don't have any questions or concerns. I'm thrilled to see more affordable units coming to downtown. I'm thrilled to see a different kind of model with a smaller unit makeup. I get a little worried about all the activity on Hilliard Avenue, but it's a very walkable urban place. So we got a lot of business and housing coming to that strip. Mr. Moritz, I see you here, and Scott, did you want to say anything? We don't seem to have any questions for you, which is probably a good thing. Okay, well then if there are no questions or comments, let's just go to the vote. Anybody have a motion? Or would you like me to make one?
I'll make it. I move to recommend that City Council approve the land use incentive grant application for Hilliard Flats LLC at 217 Hilliard Avenue.
No second.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? We'll go right to a roll call vote. Vice Mayor.
I want to move the motion forward, but I don't think I'm in favor of this. And the reason being, just being a native of that area and knowing how depressed that area is, with a lot of different societal issues. the closing down of the hotspot, and a lot of other community assets in that area, I don't see how this is really serving the community and folks who frequent that area often, who have so many needs. It's a no for me.
But so yes on the motion, but you may not vote in support. Oh, that was your roll call vote. Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
And I am also going to be an aye. And then this will come to council later, so there will be another chance for discussion, perhaps to Vice Mayor Smith's concerns. Thank you for being here today, David and Scott, and you're welcome to just leave us. Thank you. Have a good day. For those of you listening at home, we're going to move on to item number 3. And this will be a request for Deaverview Phase 1. We have it listed as a housing trust fund request, but we believe that's actually a typo. We're talking about a different possible funding route. But let's just get right into it and we'll explain it. Who's going to walk us through this? Is this Nikki or Sasha? Okay, great, Sasha, thank you.
Okay, I apologize if there's a typo. We read through this a bunch of times. I should not say that. So this is
just the agenda item, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is a request for bond funds for Reimagining Deaverview. I know you had a item last night and I watched most of that discussion. Next. So you're familiar with the project and the elevations and such. So they're asking for 1.2 million in affordable housing bond funds for this project. The way we have discussed with Mr. Nash that this funding would be contingent on awards of the tax credit, and it'd also be contingent on Buncombe County funding 1.2 million, as a grant to HACA as well. I know they haven't funded it out of their program funds, and I believe that this project is in front of the county next week as a part of their ARPA request. So the subsidy, if you do the math, 1.2 million is about $14,600 per unit, which is, pretty low subsidy per unit. And generally we do try to structure things as loans so that the money comes back and we can reloan it out. But obviously we kind of have a special relationship with the Housing Authority. It's similar to what we did with Maple Crest. And the Housing Authority does address the most vulnerable in our community. Next. So I'm not going to go over this background because you know most of it and you may know it even better than I do, but the idea here, just for the public, I guess, that 82 new units would be built and current residents at Deaverview could move into those units and only move once and not be displaced, which is very important to, I think, all of the partners. The estimated project cost is around 16.4 million, and it's a combination, and I think that should actually say 9%, excuse me, so that's an error. So 9% low-income housing tax credit funds, HFA loan funds, permanent loan financing, and then Buncombe County, the city, and HACA would also put 1.2 million of their reserves into the project as well. Next. And then David also supplied us with the bedroom mix and the AMI mix. And you all discussed I think there's a possibility with this project for the income averaging. But overall it's 60% and below. Next. And you all have seen this, but for the public, this is where the new buildings would be built on the parcel. Next. And this is elevation, I believe, for the larger building. Next. So given the low subsidy per unit and addressing, very low AMI families, staff is in support of this recommendation. But we have structured the recommendation to be contingent on Buncombe County and the 9% tax credits. I know you all had a discussion last night about whether or not there should be a B1 condition around the affordability, or is it just tied to the funding? I do know that I think our city attorney is meeting with David later today, and I think planning staff will be involved as well, just so we can craft that zoning piece of it. So that concludes my presentation and happy to take questions. And David Nash and Tara Irby are here as well from the Housing Authority.
Thank you, Sasha. This slide you have up where it says it's contingent on Buncombe County also granting funds. Is it contingent on the county granting 1.2 million? Or are we just saying
I think
funds?
that's up to you all. I think that's how we were envisioning it. You know, we generally partner and do the same amounts, which is what we did with Maple Crest, and maybe we did that with Eagle Marketplace as well. But that is a question. If Buncombe County came through with $1 million or 900, that, you know, what would you all want to do? And so
Right.
we didn't include a draft resolution with this staff report today, but if you give us direction of what you think is the better solution, or, you know, we can work on that. But, you know, it could be a discussion at council as well.
Right. Okay. Councilwomen, questions, thoughts? None?
Is it 4% or 9%?
9.
9, yes, sorry about that.
And we do think that this year we might actually get 2 tax awards. So, right, fingers crossed on this one. 9% don't always happen the first year. So we're hopeful. So just recognizing that we had a council meeting last night and that this item came up. And I spoke with our city attorney this morning. And I guess the only concern I had, if I can kind of round up last night's sentiment, was we just wanted to make sure that there was some kind of condition somewhere in here that tied to the duration of affordability. And we hadn't seen that. And typically when we get those conditional rezonings, it's a condition listed. So we're going to revisit that today. We're really just making a recommendation to council, to the full council, to review this and vote on it. So we have some time, and I believe we're going to deal with both the zoning entitlement and this ask on May 10th, which is just 3 days shy of the NCHFA's deadline. So staying on task. So if there are no questions or comments, then perhaps we can move this right to a motion. I do want to share that I'm concerned about like the Buncombe County, and are we all in at the same amount? I don't know if other councilmen have that concern.
The request is in at the same amount to Buncombe County, and I understand that they're on the same time track to get to a vote on it.
Yeah, I think, what did I hear from their committee meeting? They had 5 applications, I think, and many of them had a developer fee discount. And it came up that this one didn't. And that just makes me wonder, like, if Buncombe County does vote and only allocates $500,000, will we, as council, will be able to weigh that? But I guess that's one option, to update language here to say that it's matching. We could probably take care of that at council if needed. Would anyone like to make a motion, or would you like me to make a motion? I have one in front of me.
I can make it, or
Go ahead.
I move to recommend that the Asheville City Council authorize the city manager to negotiate and enter into a grant agreement with the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville in the amount of $1.2 million according to the terms and conditions herein.
Second.
Great. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Vice Mayor Smith.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Myself, Sage Turner, aye. Okay, for those of you listening at home, we have just completed item number 3, Reimagining Deaverview Phase 1, and we're moving on to item number 4. Thank you, David and Tara, for being here with us.
Thank you all.
You're welcome to stay for this next exciting item, but if not, have a great day.
And to you.
All right, so item number 4 is an item for our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and this is a new thing. So we haven't checked in with AHAC in a while, and they requested some time on our agenda, and I believe we have both the chair, vice chair, and another member with us today. And Barry, I think you wanted to kind of lead a discussion. You sent a document, so for those of you listening at home, if you can get into the folder of documents, there is a document that Barry will be referring to. But go ahead, Barry, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I so much appreciate time on the agenda. And the main purpose I really wanted to formalize and discuss is just there's been a lot of discussion about subcommittees and the purpose of commissions and committees, and I know there's some reimagining going on. But part of this stems obviously from the COVID affecting just our in-person communication. You know, like I'm aware even the three of you really just sat together for the first time just a couple months ago. And so we haven't had these same opportunities for in-person discussions and dialogues to move conversations along. So in the meantime, you know, we as a committee have definitely felt frustrations that we haven't been in sync with your committee, which is, you know, I look at it as the committee we report to, and that we're supposed to be carrying out some of the objectives. So we really wanted to just kind of discuss how we can have better communication flow. And, you know, our main purpose of our committee, our charter, you know, we have these three overarching tasks that are, you know, I put on the document, you know, considering affordable housing policy issues and advising city leadership about the policies, developing concrete action steps to implement the highest priorities of the affordable housing plan and to update the plan as appropriate, and then to advise city leadership and staff regarding affordable housing priorities for the investment of city-controlled funds. So those are kind of the overarching three tasks that our committee has, and that's how we recruit new members, and that's kind of the guidelines we follow. So the document, you know, I sent along, if y'all had the opportunity to read it, kind of gives in each of those kind of the ideas of we think how we can kind of help move those priorities along. And you know, one of the thing over, you know, this plan that's referred to, the affordable housing plan, is from 2008, and a lot has changed since 2008. You know, we know that. I mean, the average house price is now more than double what it was. One piece of lumber is at least 300 times, you know, is at least 300 times what it was. 3 times what it was. So a lot has changed. And I look at kind of like what AHAC is. AHAC is kind of this nitty gritty voice of the people working in the trenches of affordable housing, of giving some advice and guidance as to how maybe we can update with kind of like almost a white sheet. You know, obviously to update the whole 2008 plan, which is needed, would be, you know, a year-long undertaking. So in the meantime, we can react quickly to the market effects. So that's what, you know, I look at, we're helping to share some of the in the streets insights and how we can change, you know, how we can advise. You know, another thing that's really unique about the AHAC position is that we're not city staff. We're not generally the developers requesting the financing. So we can also advise and speak as true representatives of the public. And we also don't have we can speak without the same repercussions. You know, a lot of developers that have worked in the city have a lot of frustrations with how the city has been as a partner, and they can't speak up the same way because they're receiving city funding. So we are very connected with a lot of these people, so we hear a lot of the grumbles, and rather than just pass the grumbles on, we're trying to like listen to where they see complaints, what we think is valid, and how we could help connect to make the city a better partner. You know, as one who owns a public business, you know, we look at our Yelp reviews, we look at our Google reviews, and I honestly wouldn't want to see what a developer, if the city was rated with Yelp reviews by developers, how we are as a partner, I wouldn't want to see what that would look like. But we hear a lot of those, and I think we can help make those better. So, you know, the main ask that I'd like to see to help this communication flow is kind of a standing agenda item that we, you know, if we had like an AHAC item on your agenda and we had an HCD item on our agenda, and we won't overload it. We're thinking, you know, maybe 3 items that definitely all stay within the list of our 3 primary tasks. And that way we know when we discuss something and pass it on where it goes. Because right now we have meetings, we pass items, we discuss about things, and we kind of never know where they go. And we sometimes have really good ideas. You know, one example recently, I think, was, you know, a real great example from what we did as a committee is, you know, since I've been on this committee, I've been through 5 community development directors. And we hear, and they vent to us about the frustrations about what they've been through. So one of the things we stood up for, you know, at the end of 2021 is that to replace the previous director's position, we needed an affordable housing officer. We needed something with the title affordable housing in it, and we didn't have that. You know, it was Paul's program director role, So we kind of put our foot in at a meeting and said, look, we really need something with the title affordable housing. And I'm glad that that did get the attention, and that position is actually being hired for now, was advertised as being hired for. And that really came out of our committee. So it's just one of those examples of how we've observed so much over the years and in the trenches, and that we feel we have some good advice to pass on, and we want to make sure that we're being heard. So that was kind of the simplest idea I was looking for, is maybe a standing item on your agenda, that we have a standing item on our agenda. That way we're funneling this, and then we have a discussion point, and then we would commit to having one member from our committee attend HCD to kind of be able to answer questions and shepherd that information. So
I'm going to add to that, Barry, and just say that one of the things that we feel like we can help with on HCD is that the variety of expertise that we have on our committee, and we search for that. We have real estate, we have construction, people that are into actually building, like burying compact cottages. We have civil engineers. We have folks in the banking industry. So we, as a team and group, have a lot of expertise that can help HCD, because we're in those trenches every single day doing our regular jobs. So I think that's one of the reasons why we feel like communicating with you guys is so very important.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's really the gist. Is really, I think it will help with some of the frustration that we all feel. I think it will help kind of connect from a true public voice that can kind of help connect and help advise on policies and changes. And then the other part of the discussion has always been a little uncertain as to, like, the example, you looked at two applications today, LUIG Housing Trust Fund, that over the years they used to flow through our committee, and we weren't a voting body, but we would have input and advise on them. And then looking at those would help us craft future policy changes, and those have not been flowing through us. So it's kind of strange sometimes that some of these applications, the first time they have a public input is at HCD, and I think there's value in them, just flowing through us. It could be as simple as the same way that a staff report rides along with the application. Maybe there's just an AHAC line, like what the thoughts from AHAC were, rather than any kind of binding. But I think that would also be helpful. One recent example I can think of that we did, we were kind of pushing to get some of these applications through us, and we had one that was on Long Shoals did come through us. And one of the things I remember that came up in I think it was a Luigi ask, was that the unit mix, like the sole unit mix that was being offered up as affordable was the studios, and it was the single class. And we chimed in and said, look, they're really, it seems unfair that it's just a single class ask. And they they updated their application, before you. So when it came to you, it actually was updated, and they changed the unit mix around to include, I think, a few 1-bedrooms in. So this is kind of the value, I think, that we can help offer a due diligence on these applications, that I think that, we would like to be leaned on for that. And, this standing agenda item might be a way to help connect that. So not sure, is there anyone else on our committee that would like to speak up about their thoughts?
Councilwoman, any initial thoughts? So quiet today. So what comes to mind, because I naturally compare this to my downtown commission role, because there we did a lot of project review and stuff. And then what would happen is by the time it got to council, it would have like downtown commission's input, planning and zoning's input. And that's kind of what I'm thinking of when you say like HCD is going to review an item, and could AHAC have helped and sent along a message or input about it? Because I hear several of your points. So you're, of course, as AHAC members or members of the public, always welcome to attend our meetings. This is a council committee, so it can only be made up of counselors. For those of you listening at home, that's why we don't have other members of the public. This is more of a regulatory council committee. I don't know that we could I'm not even sure of the logistics. That I don't think your ask is necessarily to be in this environment, like as if you're a member of the committee on a standing basis, but you'll always send someone from AHAC. They'll be available with questions. So I guess the next layer would be, and I don't have a problem with a simple, what did AHAC look at last month linked on our agenda? I mean, if we are kind of the parent committee of housing, and we have these other ones, even like HIAC comes to mind, and we're dealing with an issue that those bodies, discussed or reviewed. I don't know why we wouldn't just tag those minutes so we could review them instead of going to look for them, and for the public to know that there's a correlation across different input bodies. So that doesn't concern me. What other councilwomen or staff, what are your thoughts?
But I think he's also saying that with some items, he's looking for a pass through,
Right.
come through AHAC before it reaches us so that we can have their insight and input before we make a decision and not the other way around.
Right.
I think that's a staff coordinated thing to make sure that once applications come, that they have that proper chain before they come to our committee or reach the full board, the full council.
And I'm always hesitant around, like, does that elongate the time to get an affordable housing project through review? So, with that in mind, is there a way to, staff, what are your thoughts on this? Because it sounds like we did it at some point. I don't recall being on AHAC when we did that, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I'm kind of a little bit new to this whole piece
Right.
of it, but I think as long as we can advise developers at the very front end, at the pre-app, like if you want a LUIG grant, here's what it is, and here's when you have to apply, because really right now in the policy, it says turn in your application at least 14 days before HCD. So that does not work if you wanted to get on the AHAC agenda. So really, I don't know that asking for a month for staff to analyze it and get it to AHAC and then HCD is really too much. That seems reasonable if you're planning ahead. I think it's this issue of, the city is trying to be nimble and be responsive to developers in affordable housing. And so that question of bureaucracy and are we making it too hard? And so let's say if somebody's doing a really small project, that's not going to go to TRC, planning and zoning, or it's not going to go to any of those places. It's just a small level one. That's the one thing I could see, really with smaller projects, that sometimes they feel they're not as really prepared for those longer timeframes.
Right.
The way we just, when Paul was here, one of the ways I was trying to work out with Paul before he left is that it would be just rather than a separate report, it would almost be an AHAC input on the staff report. So as the staff's preparing the report, it would basically just be a section of the staff report that says what the AHAC opinion on it was. That's how we tried to streamline it, that basically maybe the staff report could get shared. Generally we're a few weeks just before HEDs, but that was kind of when we were kind of negotiate how it could be. We thought rather than a whole separate approval process, it would just be an input line on the staff report.
Yeah, I think that's doable.
Okay.
Could somebody share with us how the new board restructuring kind of works? Because I think there is a direct reporting mechanism with the restructuring process.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for introducing that. And as you know, we are in the process of trying to relook at the relationships between council committees and the advisory boards and committees that you all have established. I would suggest that this would be input into that process, that this is a request from AHAC, and we can take that under consideration so that there's some level of continuity or consistency between all of the council committees and the advisory boards, and not have, 5 or 6 different kinds of processes and relationships between the advisory boards and council committees. But I definitely think that we could take this under consideration, add it to the list of things that need to be considered in terms of those relationships.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. Because, for example, just this morning, we had a LUIG ask for what I call the 80 micro units. In the future, I'd love to be able to say, this is interesting. Our LUIG process doesn't talk about 200 square foot units. Could they look at this? Could we get their input on this? Because this is a little interesting and different than what we've seen. So, that's a great example for me of when we could, benefit from greater input from the builders, the bankers, the lenders, and so on. Councilwoman Mosley or Vice Mayor? Looks like you have more to say, Vice Mayor.
No.
Okay. Councilwoman Mosley? Okay. So Barry and Margie and Joe, what I heard is potentially linking to, researcher input from AHAC on our agendas, potential for or an interest in kind of items going back and forth, kind of like if HCD could say, hey, AHAC, can you look at this? And AHAC could say, hey, we saw this, heads up. So I don't, it sounds like we can add this into the input pile for boards and commissions overhaul. And then was there one more thing? Nope, just the other thing was that you'd be available. So I think those are great recommendations to throw into this mix of how do we do things? How can we be better? How can this whole process be better?
So is that I'm trying to understand, is that saying, yes, we can't, so our thought was we will start at with moving to this new method of having action items that we create. And is that something then when we create our action items, we can expect, if we say these are the top 3 things we can ask to have on your agenda so we can discuss? Or you're saying to just put that in this pile of advisory information that's at least 6 months to a year off?
Do we think it's 6 months to a year off? What I heard from Deborah was kind of this isn't a one-off case, that AHAC, is a valuable resource and has all of this experience on it and wants to do more to assist council, right? So it's not just AHAC that has been feeling this way or reaching out to council. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we're treating everyone and their requests the same and saying, okay, this is the request on the table. This is the boards and commissions process in play. And maybe Deborah, you could speak to the timeline a little bit, or if you are able to.
Sorry, was having time trying to unmute. You all are having a work session coming up in May, and I think that may be May 10th. And then, following that, we will have a much more definitive timeline. But I think we're looking at least having a prototype, so to speak, by early September, mid-September. So it definitely is not a year away for certain. We will have some information and some trials to see how things work. Very soon.
That's about 4 meetings away. Okay. Go ahead, Margie.
I was just going to say, I had been sent an invitation to join the group that's going to be looking at redoing the boards and commissions, and had put in that we would like a couple of members of AHAC to, not just one person, but we would definitely be there on, every single meeting. We would have 1 or 2 or 3 people that we would rotate so that it wasn't because it goes on for 6 months. And so we would have representation there, and we would definitely want to be a part of that Reimagining the Boards and Commissions group. So we're definitely going to have our thoughts and wishes there.
And
Well, we
I think-
appreciate your input. Thank you very
I
much.
think from what I've seen of that ask, it's a 6-month long task force. So it seems like that's why I come with it's minimum 6 months till there's a change. If there's a task force being set up with a 6-month timeline, it seems like it's at least 6 months off. So what that's kind of with knowing that's why we're trying to come up with something, how we can feel like we as a committee effectively operate for the next 6 months with doing what we are chartered to do.
Barry, I wonder if, as the chair of this committee and you, the chair of that committee, if maybe we should get together and talk about these items, because maybe I don't sense that we're going to get to a formal process today where you can send HCD items for us to review. However, as the chairs, we can discuss this, and I can bring it to committee and to staff and say, this has come up, and I think HCD members may want to discuss it. We can do a little informal kind of thing to see if that helps move some things along in the meantime. Would that help?
Supposed to. That's what we do now. And as you know, I think I've asked for this meeting for 6 months now. So I think that's why I think the frustration level is elevated to the point that we're actually asking for something formal, and that our committee has put the work in a task force to try to get to this, because
Right.
and because we're also you're basically talking about putting this in a pile of suggestions for how to change boards and commissions, that it's a 6-month task force just starting, that we don't know if it's going to be successful, because there's obviously a lot of public rally against this concept. So I think if us as a very experienced committee that is asking for, like, well, this is a way we think this might work better right now, and it kind of, and you're saying, well, there's an informal process, you and I could talk about this, but we feel like if we're a formed committee and we're making recommendations and we never know where they go, and that's really frustrating. And all we are asking as the committee is, okay, well, you're the committee that we essentially report to. Can you listen to our top 3 things each month? It's about all we're asking, and I think that's not a big ask. And it would be.
It makes me want to. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
It makes me.
go ahead.
It just makes me think of the overall HCD's role, and I say that because, so for instance, the last 3 meetings that HCD has had, they've been packed with regulatory things that we're required to do.
Sure.
CDBG reviews, allocation of money. I mean, there's just something, like we did a 2 hours of presentation. So there isn't a way for us to just say, look, you're going to get on the agenda and it's always a thing. We have so many other responsibilities that aren't necessarily like just reviewing a project or a new concept. We have things we have to manage, right? So some of that is hard, like saying, we waited 6 months to get on the agenda. Well, the last 3 meetings, it wouldn't have made sense. So I hear you. I don't know that I'm not sensing we're going to adopt anything today. And I don't want you to feel lost in the process, because I think everyone very much cares about affordable housing. We just made it one of our, top items again of concern. So if in the meantime, while we're going through this potential shift with boards and commissions, if I can do something as a chair to better help y'all, feel heard at this level, I think I'm willing to do that. I don't think we're going to have a real, formal fix for you today, to use your words.
And here's my thing, to that point, Sage, we're not only a housing development committee, we're also a community development committee, and there are other advisory boards who would like access, just like your group. And right now, as the conversation has gone along, I think you had some very good suggestions at the beginning, but, layering in, other advisory boards who would like the same type of access and to be placed on agenda item. We have to kind of weigh that out. But what you have, your committee has, you have access to Sage, and then you have your liaison, Ms. Mosley. Like, in the meantime, just use the tools that are in your hands and strengthen that while we kind of figure out what this formal process is going to look like. Because right now it kind of feels like we're giving preference to one group over the other advisory boards who also want to weigh in on how we do our community development piece.
I do hear you, but I would beg to say that I would say affordable housing is numero uno issue in our city, and
We need to be number 1.
yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, and they would
I hate
probably
to be
say something different, but they would be number 1 as well. And I don't want to get into the conversation about who should get preference over another, because all issues are issues that we need to look at equitably and put our all into. So I don't want to get into that conversation, but I think you all have a good point. But we're just going to have to figure out things moving forward. And thank you for your suggestions. But I think we have a lot more to consider, and given we have other groups who would like access, and then we have a formalized process that's kind of in the making.
Yeah, what comes to mind is, I think, is it HRC that's working on some language around short-term rentals? Like, would they have wanted to come bring that to us? I'm not sure. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we have to approach this fairly, just because we have so many advisory boards. And so this is affordable housing. I mean, let's put ourselves to work more. Let me assist you in this gap period of not knowing what direction boards may or may not go. And I mean, I'm happy to have a standing meeting with you if it helps.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say I'll just say one last thing. When I found it did our system and our communication work best, and that's kind of why I'm most suggesting this. This is how we used to do it. I mean, when back in the days, when Gordon Smith was our committee liaison and, chaired HCD and obviously was a councilman. I mean, I would come to every single HCD meeting. We would have a check-in before the HCD meeting. And, so I think just maybe because his role he was our liaison and he was, the chair and obviously affordable housing was his number one priority. I think we had a better communication flow and I think we accomplished a lot more that way. And I don't think we feel the same frustration. So I'm just looking for creative ways to aid that, so we don't have, whatever, we have 12, 13 committee members that feel very frustrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll continue on this, I guess, more informal path, since it doesn't seem like we can create a formal path. And then I guess we'll see how the whole boards and commissions, adjustment plays out. But I think there's gonna be a lot of public sentiment against that.
Well, and Barry, let's do that. Let's check in. I remember the days of Gordon, and he was such an inspiring council member around housing. And he did work really hard, and he did constantly stay in contact. And I remember thinking just, wow, how grateful I was for him. And, and maybe we can bring some of that back, just you and I in general as chair of HCD. I'm not your liaison, but you can work with Antoinette, you can work with me to make sure that we're all in sync. And I think we can, even just having this moment to discuss it and recognize that there's concern at AHAC, I think is helpful to acknowledge and make us.
Sage, how many people can you meet with at one from AHAC? Just you or?
Before it's an actual meeting. So
yeah.
Well, two of us from HCD cannot meet. So only one of us, you can only meet with one of us at a time. And then on your body, I guess it becomes a meeting when there's more than 4. Is that right? What did we learn? The working group threw us. So we thought it was a majority before. And then when we moved into working groups during the pandemic, we learned maybe it wasn't. I might need Janice, look at that. Queued right up.
My ears were burning.
So how many people from AHAC can meet with one person from HCD?
Is it a majority or is it 4? The working groups threw me because we used to say you couldn't meet with 4 committee members.
Well, I know we've had different, so a subcommittee that, might be a lesser number than the majority of so you say you have a subcommittee of 3, they are still a majority of their subcommittee. And we always say those need to be publicly, that is like a public hearing. Now that is if you have a directive from your larger committee saying you're directed here, subcommittee, this is your task and report back to us, then you're a true subcommittee. Brad has given the opinion that there are working groups which are sort of out there working on their own. They don't have a specific directive from their larger committee, and has said that those, I don't think there is a number. It's, you can, say it's 2 or 3, as long as you're a lower number than your whole committee.
Well, this is a
majority.
This isn't a subcommittee though, just to be clear. This is members of AHAC committee. And then me as chair of HCD, because I'm not an AHAC liaison. So just me separate. And then I think I can meet with 3 AHAC members, and that 4 may be a problem.
Again, if it's not, so whatever the meeting is, if it's not some directive from the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee to say, hey, subcommittee, you 3 are a subcommittee to always meet with HCD,
Gotcha.
Then you are the subcommittee that might need a public notice.
So we could do lunch. We could rotate people so that, 3 of us this time and maybe another 3 that time, so that
y'all gonna drive me crazy, but okay.
Communication is key. And, I think of the city as I used to work for a really large corporation. And, communication is always the thing that needs improvement. And so getting us in tune with what you are, if it's a rotating kind of thing, I think that would be fine, as long as the committee feels like we're being, have the opportunity to talk.
Great. So how about this? Our calendar is pretty steady with HCD. The dates are known. I can't remember what, we've gotten a little out of whack recently. I guess it's the 2nd week. Go ahead and for the next few months, throw me some calendar invites. And we won't be able to have two of us at it, so just keep that in mind. Okay. So if you want to meet with one of the others, then go ahead too. But yeah, I'm happy to engage like that and help, this informal kind of setup until we know more about how we're navigating the future.
Yeah, and we probably, I imagine we as a committee will probably we probably will create a standing agenda item for us of the top 3 things that we think should pass to HED. And then that gives at least something we could talk about in the meetings, or something you can choose to look at or not.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, committees do their own working group or working plans and suggestions to council every year. And I think that's in that vein too. Knowing your top 3 issues would be interesting to me. Okay. Any other questions or comments from councilwomen or staff? Thank you, AHAC, for volunteering more of your time to be with us today. We appreciate your input, and I'll look forward to some calendar invites to sit down and talk issues.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Okay, back to our agenda. We just finished item 4 for those of you listening at home, and we're on to our last item, which is public comment. Jenna, do we have any public comment or anyone on the phone?
There's no one in the queue.
No one in the queue. Well, then I believe we have completed our agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.